Welcome to our webinar on the Fairfax County Deer Management Program. My name is Catherine Edwards, and I'm the Wildlife Management Specialist with the Fairfax County Police Department. Today I'll be presenting an overview of the Deer Management Program, but I'd like to take a moment to recognize my colleague, Sergeant Eric Powell with the Fairfax County Animal Protection Police, for his assistance in managing this program. During this webinar, I'll provide information on the reasons for deer management within Fairfax County, the management methods that are used for population control, program protocols and safety measures, data collection and monitoring efforts, and deer harvest summaries. Active deer management is often necessary to maintain deer populations at optimum levels to meet the needs of residents within the Commonwealth. The Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources, also known as the DWR, is the state wildlife agency that sets the regulatory framework for deer management within the Commonwealth. The DWR has developed the Virginia Deer Management Plan, which provides the framework for population management, recreation, damage management, and habitat conservation related to white-tailed deer within Virginia. This plan identifies areas that should be managed to either increase deer, decrease deer, or keep populations at the same level, and it's based on involvement with various stakeholders, including professionals with technical expertise in deer biology and deer management. The figure and statement shown on this slide are from the current Virginia Deer Management Plan that is administered by the DWR. The population objectives that are outlined in this plan are set to balance the needs of a diverse human community and also to protect ecosystem integrity and biodiversity within the Commonwealth. As you can see in this figure, Fairfax County is identified as an area for deer herd reduction. To address these goals, hunting is the preferred population management method where appropriate and feasible. While the DWR maintains oversight of deer management in Virginia, localities have the ability to adopt and implement deer management programs under the DWR's purview to address concerns related to overabundant deer at the local level. In 1998, the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors mandated development of the Fairfax County Deer Management Program in response to concerns of county residents about the growing number of deer and conflicts posed by overabundant deer. The program has now been ongoing for 20 years. The Fairfax County Deer Management Program is operated primarily on county-owned properties and is implemented by the Fairfax County Police Department in collaboration with the Fairfax County Park Authority, Nova Parks, and other public landowners within the county. Over the years, the deer population in Fairfax County has grown to a level that poses safety and health hazards in our communities and is not sustainable by the environment over time. The goal of the deer management program is to reduce the current deer population to more sustainable levels in order to minimize impacts for residents and wildlife alike. Serious public safety concerns are associated with a high number of deer vehicle collisions that occur annually in Virginia and here in Fairfax County. Virginia is considered a high-risk state for deer vehicle collisions. According to an October 2020 State Farm report, Virginia ranks 12th in the nation for the likelihood of drivers being involved in a collision with a deer. The likelihood of having an insurance claim involving a deer was 1 in 72 for Virginia drivers. Dense deer populations are inferred to be one of the principal factors in the increase of ticks in many urban environments. This has led to public concern over disease transmission, especially related to Lyme disease. The Lyme disease cycle is complex and includes multiple wildlife hosts, including mice, chipmunks, shrews, birds, and deer. Adult ticks feed and mate primarily on deer, but the deer themselves do not serve as a source of infection for the Lyme disease bacterium. The presence of deer has been correlated with tick populations to variable degrees, and some research studies have found that a reduction of deer populations to very low thresholds may reduce tick abundance. However, the relationship between deer populations and the incidence of Lyme disease remains unclear. Although this relationship is unclear, there is still public concern that dense deer populations may increase human risk of exposure to ticks by moving them to new areas, and concern over the role that deer play in maintaining tick populations. To address these concerns, the county conducted a 3-year pilot study from 2012 to 2015 to test the use of a 4-poster deer treatment station technology as a novel method of controlling tick infestations on white-tailed deer. This research was conducted by the Fairfax County Wildlife Management Office in collaboration with the Health Department's Disease Carrying Insects program. A four-poster deer treatment station is a feeding station that uses corn to bait deer and then treat the deer with a pesticide to kill ticks while they feed at the station. Based on our study's results, further implementation of four-poster stations in Fairfax County was not recommended. More detailed information about this research and its findings can be found on the Fairfax County webpage listed on this slide. Spread of diseases within the deer herd is also a concern. Diseases are transmitted more readily when deer densities are high. A key concern is the potential for spread of chronic wasting disease in free-ranging deer in Virginia. Chronic wasting disease, known as CWD, is an infectious neurological disease found in deer, elk, and moose in North America. This disease is caused by abnormal infectious proteins called prions, which can be passed between deer through saliva, feces, and urine, and through water or soil that are contaminated with prions. CWD is 100% fatal to affected animals, and there is no vaccine to prevent infection and no known treatment for infected animals. CWD is a slow-acting and progressive disease. Clinical signs of CWD typically do not develop for several months to over a year after exposure and include staggering, abnormal posture, lowered head, drooling, confusion, and marked weight loss. CWD was first identified in captive deer in the late 1960s in Colorado and in wild deer in 1981. CWD has been detected in 26 states, including Virginia, and 3 Canadian provinces. The first case in Virginia was documented in 2009, and a total of 109 deer have tested positive for CWD since that time. The Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources is responsible for CWD surveillance and management within the Commonwealth and has put measures in place to try and limit its spread among deer populations and to new areas. This has included the designation of 3 disease management areas, known as DMAs, liberalized hunting seasons, restrictions on carcass transport, deer feeding bans, rehabilitation restrictions, and mandatory check stations for harvested deer within DMAs, among other actions. Within the past 2 years, CWD-positive deer have been confirmed in nearby localities including Loudoun, Fauquier, and Culpeper counties. CWD has not been confirmed in Fairfax County at this time, but there is high concern among wildlife biologists over the potential spread of this disease to new areas. Deer herd reduction, conducted primarily through hunting, is necessary to lower deer population densities to prevent or slow the spread of CWD. Overabundant deer can have a negative impact on forested habitat. Overbrowsing by deer can degrade forest composition and structure with lasting impacts. In many areas within Fairfax County, we see little to no regeneration of trees due to consumption of seedlings and saplings by deer. We see forests that are simplified with the removal of understory and shrub layers by deer, and seed banks which are depleted and will not be replenished over time. Overbrowsing on native vegetation also leaves an open canvas for the establishment of non-native invasive plants to take over many of our forested habitats. An overabundant deer population can degrade habitat for numerous other species as well. While healthy forests include deer, they also include many other species of insects, plants, and other wildlife that have evolved as a part of our local biodiversity and depend on these habitats. The Fairfax County Deer Management Program was developed based on national best practices for deer management, wildlife management program models in other jurisdictions, deer census data, environmental impact studies, and peer-reviewed scientific literature. The Fairfax County Deer Management Program uses methods that are currently approved for deer population reduction by the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources. These include the use of archery, managed hunting, and sharpshooting. We also consult with county residents on the use of humane exclusion and other repellency measures to address deer damage and conflicts on private property. Archery is the primary management method used in Fairfax County for deer herd reduction. Archery was approved for deer management by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors in 2000, but was not fully implemented until fiscal year 2010. The archery program is operated on public lands, primarily within county parks. Currently, the archery program includes approximately 100 properties, or about 80 to 90% of the county park land holdings. Parks remain fully open to the public while archery is conducted due to strict safety protocols that are put in place to allow for continued recreation. The archery program is conducted annually between September and February. Dates for the upcoming season are September 11th through February 19th. Hunting is allowed within the approved parks Monday through Saturdays. No hunting is allowed on parkland on Sundays. Legal hunting hours are set by the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources and are 30 minutes prior to sunrise, extending throughout the day until 30 minutes past sunset. The deer management program has an exceptional safety record, and there have been 0 safety incidents since the program began. Hunters are required to go through a special screening process and qualifications to be eligible for the Fairfax County Archery Program. Archers must pass a criminal background check conducted by the Fairfax County Police Department. Disqualifying convictions include, but are not limited to, any type of child exploitation violation, domestic violence, weapons charges, game violations, animal cruelty, or any felony. All archers must be in compliance with game licensing and general hunter safety education requirements as specified by the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources. This includes having a valid Virginia hunting license, Virginia deer turkey license, and Virginia archery license. Archers in our program are also required to complete additional training above what is mandated by the state, including a course through the International Bowhunter Education Program. This course is administered by the National Bowhunter Education Foundation in cooperation with the DWR and provides more in-depth training about safe and responsible bow hunting practices. All archers are required to pass qualifications with their bows to participate in the Fairfax County program and must adhere to ethical standards in order to be a part of the program. Hunting within county parks can only be conducted by archers that have gone through the special screening and selection process. Hunting by the general public in county parks is prohibited. Archers that are selected for the program are assigned to a specific park cluster, and this is overseen by one or more group leaders who act as liaisons between the hunt group and program managers with the Fairfax County Police Department. Each cluster generally contains several parks, and archers are only allowed to hunt within the parks of their assigned cluster. Archers are responsible for regular contact with their group leader and the deer program manager with the Fairfax County Police Department. Archers are required to maintain detailed logs each time they're on an approved park property. This includes recording the date, start and end times of each hunt, number of deer observed, shots taken, deer shot and retrieved, and biological information about the deer. This information is entered into an electronic database, which is monitored daily by the archery group leaders and program managers with the Fairfax County Police Department. Any activities that deviate from normal protocol must be reported immediately using an incident report form. Incident reports are required to be filed for any non-retrieved deer, lost archery tackle, signs of poaching that are observed, hunter injury, theft or damage to equipment, or hunter harassment. Persons that violate these rules will face disciplinary actions and may be removed from the program. Archery activities are conducted according to strict protocol. All hunting is conducted from elevated tree stands, which allow the hunter to engage the deer from above. This elevated position gives the hunters a clear vantage point of the ground below, and the resulting downward trajectory of the arrow means that the ground acts as a natural backstop. Additionally, archery tackle is only effective at short range, which means that the hunter is close to the target, allowing for clear views and easy identification of the deer. Archers must identify the deer with 100% certainty and may not take shots at moving animals. Our county program places distance restrictions on hunting near property lines and trails. Placement of tree stands and hunting is not permitted within 100 feet of a property line and 50 feet from an established park trail. While archers are on the ground, their arrows and bolts will be quivered, and hunting from the ground level is strictly prohibited in any park. Archers may also not enter private property without permission by the owner or tenant. The deer management program is designed as a deer reduction program. The archery program operates under a deer population control permit called a DPOP permit, which is issued by the DWR and allows public landowners to use deer hunters to harvest extra antlerless deer outside of traditional seasons. The archery program also adheres to Earn a Buck, which is a regulation set by the DWR and is designed to control deer populations by increasing the antlerless deer harvest. Hunters are required to notch a deer tag, either a DPOP tag or a personal tag, before moving a deer. DPOP tags are provided by the program and can only be used for antlerless deer. Hunters must use personal tags for antlered deer that are harvested in the program, and all hunters must comply with the bag limits that are set by the DWR. Deer must be removed from public view before field dressing, and archers are required to cover deer completely while transporting. When on site, hunters are required to have several items. Each hunter is issued a unique ID number from the police department and an identification card and lanyard for the program. This archery program ID must be worn on the outside of clothing anytime a hunter is entering and exiting the park, or during any scouting or tracking activity, or setting up or taking down equipment. All equipment and archery tackle must also be labeled with their personal ID number, including all arrows, tree stands, and game and trail cameras. Hunters are also issued a parking tag with their ID number that's to be hung on the rearview mirror of their vehicle when on site. They must also keep a copy of the DPOP permit in their glove box. Fluorescent orange signs are used to notify park patrons of the archery program in progress. Archery program signs, shown here on the left and center, are posted at park entrances and trailheads. Hunters are only allowed to park in specific locations that are labeled with authorized parking signs, shown here on the right. I want to switch gears at this time and now talk about our second management method, which is the use of public managed hunts. Managed hunts are public firearms hunts using qualified volunteer hunters. These hunts are similar to the archery program in that the hunters go through a special screening and selection process and qualifications in order to be eligible for the program. Managed hunts are only conducted in specific areas of the county due to firearms restrictions. Hunting is only permitted in designated hunt areas and is also conducted from elevated tree stands. Most recently, these hunts were conducted in the Sully Woodlands area within the Sully District. During these hunts, the areas are secured by Fairfax County Police personnel, and these hunts also operate under a deer population control permit, or a DPOP permit, similar to the archery program. All hunters are required to check in and out with assigned police personnel, and all the deer that are harvested must be taken to a designated check station for data collection. The third method of deer population control used in Fairfax County is the use of sharpshooting. Nighttime sharpshooting operations are conducted by the Fairfax County Police Department at select parks when parks are closed to the public. These operations involve systematic culling of deer by trained police officers and are conducted under a special kill permit authorized by the Virginia Department of Wildlife Resources. Sharpshooting is conducted during the fall and winter between November and March at a small number of parks. All sharpshooting is conducted from an elevated, static position over bait. Night vision equipment, thermal imaging, and suppressed firearms are used to expedite field procedures and ensure discreet operations. Camera stations are also set up at each location to monitor the deer herd throughout the operations. County staff and uniformed public safety officers are present at parking lots and trailheads on nights when sharpshooting is conducted in order to inform park patrons of the deer management activity occurring and to prevent unauthorized access into the park as a safety measure. All deer that are harvested from sharpshooting are donated for food, including Hunters for the Hungry or other local food banks. The protocols that are used for sharpshooting were developed to align with the American Veterinary Medical Association standards for humane euthanasia for free-ranging wildlife. Information about the county's deer management program is provided to residents through various means. We mail notification letters to property owners that immediately border approved park locations. We typically conduct in-person public information meetings to provide this overview of the program, but have switched to the virtual format due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, we present information to HOAs and civic associations at their request. As I mentioned previously, all park entrances and trails in the approved parks have posted deer management signs indicating that the archery program is in progress. We've also issued numerous press releases and videos related to deer management through the Fairfax County Newswire, the Fairfax County Police Department's blog, Office of Public Affairs, Channel 16, the Fairfax County YouTube channel, and through local papers and social media. Information including the program standards and locations can also be found on the Fairfax County Deer Management Program website. Over the past several years, our staff have increased efforts to collect, monitor, and evaluate data related to the impacts of overabundant deer in Fairfax County. Deer vehicle collisions, referred to as DVCs, are the primary cause of deer deaths in suburban areas without other lethal control. Staff are attempting to collect and analyze multiple sources of DVC data in order to determine whether collisions involving deer are decreasing countywide and to identify locations of DVC hotspots. However, accurate DVC data is very difficult to obtain and analysis is still ongoing. Most jurisdictions rely on police records, which often grossly underrepresent the number of collisions involving deer because not all collisions are reportable incidents in terms of traffic records. Reportable crashes in Fairfax County include police reports through the Traffic Records Electronic Data System, known as TREDS. These reportable crashes include accidents that result in injury or fatality or property damage exceeding $1,500. A 2017 study by the Virginia Transportation Research Council found that DVCs may actually be 8.5 times higher than those reported by police departments. Many crashes are reported solely to insurance companies if they're minor. However, insurance data are not accessible to county staff. Statewide numbers are available to VDOT, but insurance companies do not provide the location data for these crashes. VDOT maintains records for animal carcass pickups along state-maintained roads, but these data have not been systematically collected and are very cumbersome to analyze. We're attempting to estimate the number of VDOT work orders for deer carcass pickups and locations for these DVCs within Fairfax County. And also, not all deer that are hit by vehicles die at the roadway. Studies estimate that only 25% of deer that are hit by cars actually die at the roadside. Others may venture elsewhere to expire, or some may survive. So these numbers represent a minimum number that are hit by cars in Fairfax County. Collisions in Fairfax County have resulted in injury and fatality of residents and have also contributed to extensive property damage. According to police records from TREDS, an average of 106 DVCs have been reported annually in Fairfax County since 2010. These numbers have ranged between 89 and 120 deer vehicle collisions a year during that time frame. Overall, we see a declining trend in reportable DVCs countywide. DVCs peaked between 2005 and 2007 and then began to decrease in 2008. However, the number of collisions has fluctuated over the years. We have not conducted statistical analyses on these data at this time, and it's not possible to draw inferences or make assumptions about the deer management program simply based on these data. We know that deer are not the only factor in crashes, and crashes could be impacted by numerous other factors that are not correlated with deer population size or deer density. We occasionally receive questions whether archery hunting within the parks may be contributing to deer vehicle collisions within Fairfax County. To address these concerns, we've further analyzed the DVC data in terms of when they're occurring by month, time of day, and day of the week in order to examine them in relation to the deer management program. In terms of DVCs by month, we see notable increases in collisions occurring during the months of October and November. These data correlate with statewide trends in DVCs as reported by insurance companies. These trends are associated with deer movement patterns during the fall that are related to the breeding season and also seasonal changes in preferred forage, including acorns. In terms of time of day, the majority of collisions occurred from dusk to dawn, which coincide with peak deer activity times. We see notable spikes in DVCs occurring during night and early morning hours, with the majority of them happening outside of legal hunting hours, indicating that hunting is not responsible for the spike in collisions. We see no observable differences in DVCs by day of the week. Hunting pressure is typically highest on Saturdays, so a spike in DVCs would be expected on Saturdays if hunting were responsible for the increase in deer vehicle collisions. However, this pattern was not observed. Similarly, hunting is not permitted on Sundays in county parks within the deer management program, and we would expect to see a decrease in DVCs on Sundays if these collisions were related to hunting. However, this pattern was also not observed. We've rolled out a plan to collect additional monitoring data to better inform management strategies, including browse surveys and deer density surveys. The Fairfax County Park Authority conducts browse impact surveys to measure the impact of the deer herd on native plant communities at fixed locations within a park. In order to measure the impacts of deer browse, ecologists use a simple plot and scoring system shown here. They establish a circular plot in the woods and analyze the native woody vegetation between 6 inches and 6 feet in height within that plot. Based on the browse intensity that's observed, each plot receives a score between 1 and 5. A score of 1 indicates that no browse damage was observed, ranging to a score of 5 in which plants are severely browsed. At levels 4 and 5, we're seeing significant impacts to park vegetation, especially in terms of regeneration. The Fairfax County Park Authority has established 524 permanent plots throughout the parks in the program, where ecologists measure deer browse impacts to native woody vegetation. A sampling plan is in place to resurvey 20% of the permanent plots every year, resulting in a 5-year visitation schedule. Typically, it takes many years of sustained management to see vegetative recovery, but we've seen improvements in forest condition in parks that have had multiple consecutive years of deer management. Camera surveys are a common technique used to estimate deer populations. We conduct deer density surveys in parks throughout the county to estimate the local deer population and monitor deer population trends over time. We use a standardized approach based on Jacobson et al. 1997 that includes the use of infrared-triggered cameras to estimate deer at a bait station. These camera surveys provide an estimate of deer and a snapshot of the deer density in an individual park. They do not represent a complete census or an exact number of deer, and the results of these surveys are not used to set bag limits in individual parks. The camera surveys are conducted on county parkland in late summer due to various biological and regulatory considerations. Each survey is run over a 3-week period. Photographs are collected during this time and are analyzed to calculate estimates of the deer population and population characteristics of the deer herd, including sex ratios and fawn crop. The camera surveys are conducted in July and August prior to the deer season because we are restricted in the time of year that baited surveys can be conducted due to game regulations. Currently, state regulations prohibit the feeding of deer after September 1st and through the end of the hunting season, which is the last Sunday in April in Fairfax County. However, beginning this fall, a year-round feeding ban will be enacted in Fairfax County in accordance with state regulations pertaining to CWD management. This is due to the proximity of the known CWD-positive deer in Loudoun and Fauquier counties. The county maintains special authorization from the DWR to conduct these baited surveys at this time for the deer management program. Surveys are also conducted at this time so that it is after the fawning season, but prior to the time of year when male deer shed their antlers, so we get a better representation of the deer population structure. These are some of the representative photos from our camera surveys over the years. These surveys typically represent a minimum estimate of the number of deer using parks during late summer. Again, these surveys are used to provide an estimate of the deer population and allow comparison of the deer herd over time. As with any survey method, the results of the survey can be influenced by multiple factors, including the time of year that the survey is conducted, movement of deer into and out of the local population, the attractiveness of bait relative to native forage, camera density, site selection, and the length of the survey period, as well as weather. County staff are taking a proactive approach to conduct surveillance for chronic wasting disease due to the potential impacts that this fatal disease could pose for deer populations in Fairfax County in the future. Staff were trained by DWR personnel and follow agency guidelines for the sampling of deer and testing for CWD. Lymph node samples are collected from a subset of deer harvested on parkland through the county program. Only yearling and adult deer are tested. No fawns are submitted for testing per DWR guidelines. Samples are submitted to the Wisconsin Veterinary Diagnostics Laboratory for CWD testing through partnership with the DWR. A total of 99 deer were sampled in fiscal year 2020 from 21 parks. This past season, in fiscal year 2021, 134 deer were sampled and tested for CWD. This included 132 deer harvested from 55 parks in the Fairfax County Deer Management Program and 2 deer that were dispatched by the Animal Protection Police. All results came back as CWD being not detected. All test results were reported to the DWR State Wildlife Veterinarian and Wildlife Disease Biologist. Our staff are planning to increase sampling of deer harvested in the county program for CWD surveillance this upcoming season in coordination with the DWR. Here we provided a summary of the deer harvest from the archery program and sharpshooting efforts last season. The total program harvest for the fiscal year 2021 deer management program was 879 deer. Of those, 823 deer were harvested in the archery program and 56 deer were harvested through police sharpshooting efforts. The non-recovery rate for the deer management program for fiscal year 2021 was 8.4%. We've included additional summary statistics here related to last year's deer management program. Archery continues to be the primary management method in Fairfax County. 94% of the total deer harvest last season was through the archery program. Sharpshooting contributed to 6% of the deer harvested. The percentage of antlerless harvest was over 71% for each of the management methods and was highest for the archery program. We've included additional data related to the archery program here. On the left, you'll see a graph for park visitations by hunters from last season. There is a common misperception with the program that hunters are in the parks all day, every day throughout the program season and are taking deer during each visit. What we actually see is that 70% of park visitations where hunters are actively hunting result in no deer being harvested. 24% of visits to parks were non-hunting visits, including scouting the area, moving equipment, or other program activities, but not actively hunting. 6% of visits were active hunts that resulted in deer harvests. On the right, you'll see a graph that breaks down the harvest by type of deer. In terms of harvests, approximately 75% of the total harvests were antlerless deer, which include female deer, button bucks, which are male fawns, and bucks that have shed their antlers. Over 64% of these harvests were does, or female deer. 25% of harvests were antlered bucks, and as mentioned previously, hunters are required to use their own personal tags for taking antlered deer in the program. We also have a graph showing the disposition of deer. All deer that are taken through the archery program are either used by the hunters themselves or donated for food. About 73% of deer were kept by hunters, 16% were donated to family and friends, 9% were donated to Hunters for the Hungry, and 2% were donated to park neighbors. These graphs show the deer harvest total since the program's inception in fiscal year 1998 and the contribution of each management method since fiscal year 2010 when the archery program was implemented. Approximately 14,300 deer have been harvested through the deer management program. Harvests have increased substantially following the addition and expansion of the archery program. Archery has contributed to 81% of the total harvests over the past 12 years. Harvests have declined slightly over the past 3 years, which is likely due to multiple factors, including weather events, hunter effort, and deer density. Deer activity and hunter harvest opportunities were also likely influenced by the higher number of people visiting parks last year as more people sought outdoor recreation during the COVID-19 pandemic. A list of the upcoming changes to the deer management program for next season are provided here. A section of Cub Run Stream Valley in Chantilly, approximately 140 acres, was added to the archery program. Approximately 20 acres were added in Lorton to adjoin a parcel of Board of Supervisors property that's been included in the archery program since fiscal year 2017. Additional acreage was also added at Pohick Bay Regional Park in Lorton. Patriot North Park, formerly known as Lincoln Lewis Vanoy Park in Fairfax, was removed from the program due to site development. Acreage at Sully Historic Site in Chantilly was also reduced including property owned by the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority due to potential site development. No managed shotgun hunts will be conducted during the fiscal year 2022 season. The list of sharpshooting parks is included here. Most parks have been included in the sharpshooting program in prior years. New additions to the deer management program include Drainsville Tavern and Grand Hamptons Park in Herndon. Franconia Park and Monticello Woods Park in Springfield are also tentatively scheduled for sharpshooting, with a decision made on these parks later this fall. If you have any questions or concerns about the Fairfax County Deer Management Program, we encourage you to contact our staff listed here. For additional information, you can also visit the Deer Management Program website.